All right, open up your Bibles to Job chapter 28. Job chapter 28. This is, we're leaving the speeches behind. We're going to have a couple of chapters here, or several chapters of Job speaking on wisdom. It's a series of speeches that really culminate into his statement of ethics that he has in chapter 31. I really enjoy these chapters. And I like Homer Haley's thoughts on these. He preferred to call these chapters a continuation of his speech from chapter 27. And that's where he set forth the impossibility that man could reach perfection or a perfect wisdom. Search that he might, he would never find really that wisdom unless he went and found it with God the Father. Not saying that verbatim, obviously, from Homer Haley, but he's got some good words about that. All throughout Job, we see that the word wisdom in the Hebrew, in its noun, 18 times. Be wise, it's a verb form of wisdom, twice. And then wise is found 8 times. It is also parallel with the term understanding, could be translated as wisdom. We see that all throughout Job as well. And we should remember that, as Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 3, the wisdom of this world is foolishness before God, for it is written, He is the one who catches the wise in their craftiness. So we're going to break this down into 3 parts. Man can find hidden treasures, but man cannot find wisdom. Only God gives wisdom. So let's read verses 1 through 11. Surely there is a mine for silver and a place where they refine gold. Iron is taken from the dust and copper is smelted from rock. Man puts an end to darkness, and to the farthest limit he searches out the rock in gloom and deep shadow. He sinks a shaft far from habitation, forgotten by the foot. They hang and swing to and fro far from men. The earth, from it comes food, and underneath it is turned up as fire. Its rocks are the source of sapphires, and its dust contains gold. The path no bird of prey knows, nor has the falcon's eye caught sight of it. The proud beasts have not trodden it, nor has the fierce lion passed over it. He puts his hand on the flint. He overturns the mountains at the base. He hews out channels through the rocks, and his eye sees anything precious. He dams up the streams from flowing, and what is hidden he brings out to the light. So, man can find hidden treasures, right? And Job details mining and refining of important metals. He talks about the silver and gold and all this precious metals. And people of that day had gone to great lengths to find it. I mean, you think about that. They didn't have the kind of machinery we have today, but they would hewn out the base of a mountain, stop up a river, all to do what? Just to find this metal. And in what time period do we put Job? Where do we put this? When was Job written? Remember?
Isn't that one of the oldest books?
I think so. I think it's written before the flood, or at least it occurred before the flood. That's what I understand. We'll see here in a moment. The word Ethiopia is mentioned in this chapter, which would be strange because Ethiopia did not exist before the flood. The New American Standard translators did that. The Hebrew word is actually Cush, but they use the word Ethiopia because who knows where Cush is? Most people don't know. It's in Africa. It's most of Africa. But they use that word there so we know where it's at, which kind of gets people confused about the time of writing. But we'll see that here in a moment. But they really wanted to have those gold. And has that changed at all today? Do we still strive after these same precious metals and rocks and whatnot? And we still do. And how easy is it for us to find these hidden treasures? Is it easy to find gold? No. Is it easy to find iron? How many of you, if you had to go out there and find iron or copper, would it be easy? You got to work hard at doing this. And how hard do we work at looking and finding these precious metals and topaz and different gems? Man, we work hard. We have an entire industry. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, isn't it? Constantly looking for these things. Rare earth materials, sometimes we call it. We use it in computers, and we still strive so hard to look for all these items. But how hard do we strive to find wisdom? Well, not nearly as hard. So, we can find hidden treasures, but we can't seem to find wisdom. Verses 12 to 22. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep says, "It is not in me," and the sea says, "It is not with me." Pure gold cannot be given in exchange for it, nor can silver be weighed as its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in the precious onyx or sapphire. Gold or glass cannot equal it, nor can it be exchanged for articles of fine gold. Coral and crystal are not to be mentioned, and the acquisition of wisdom is above that of pearls. The topaz of Ethiopia, really that's Cush, cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. Where then does wisdom come from? And where is the place of understanding? Thus it is hidden from the eyes of all living and concealed from the birds of the sky. Abaddon and death say, "With our ears we have heard a report of it." So, man cannot find it. Even though people have been successful mining precious stones and whatnot and metals, we have not been successful on our own in discovering true spiritual wisdom. And so Job inquires, again, he asks those same questions, where can wisdom be found, or where is the place of understanding? It's not found in the land of the living. When we as a people, as a race of humans, try to find truth on our own, what have we discovered? Let's go to the very first time in the Bible where we see man try to do things on their own. What happens? Trying to seek wisdom on their own. Do you know where that's at, Jody?
I don't know where it's at, but I know what happened.
Oh, okay. What's that?
So, when they first tried to find the wisdom, I think that's the Tower of Babel.
That's right, Jody. That's really good. I did not practice this in front of her. Yes. And what was the point? What do you think they were trying to do building that tower? Where were they trying to build it to? That's right, because what did they think was in heaven? Up there in the sky. God. They were looking to find something. They were trying to make themselves great. And what did God do to them when he looked down to see what they were doing and saw they were building this? That's right. He confused their language and said, well, they're trying to do it the wrong way. They're not going to find it building a tower up into the sky. So he confused their language and off they went. Good job, Jody. How else? What else have we done throughout history to try to show that where we try to find wisdom but we don't look in the right place? Where do we go and what do we do? Like in today's realm. Like, how do we try to find wisdom nowadays?
Some people go to the horoscope.
Okay, yeah, the horoscope. Do we find wisdom in the horoscope or the alignment of stars? No, maybe crack open a cookie. Self-help books. That's right. The Wikipedia. Maybe we decide, you know what, we don't know where we came from, but I think we came from sea sludge or maybe a fish over billions and billions of years. Or we come up with a Big Bang idea. But even though there's no evidence of that, that's what they may point to. And we continue to try to come up with things with our own wisdom. What's the current wisdom of the day right now that's far from the truth? Men being women and women being men. We can rule ourselves without law and things of that nature. And so Job goes on in verses 23 to 28. He shows the only place to find wisdom. Remember, he's saying this, but I think his friends are hearing this. And do you remember in chapter 4, or maybe it's chapter 5, where Eliphaz says where his knowledge and wisdom came from? Do you remember where he got it from? Okay, that was Bildad. That's going to be the next point. Eliphaz he got it from his visions at night. And Bildad, he points back to the ancestors of old. Oh, look at the ancestors. And, we strive in a lot of ways, but there's only one place to find wisdom. Verse 23. God understands its way, and he knows its place. For he looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens. When he imparted weight to the wind and meted out the waters by measure, when he set a limit for the rain and a course for the thunderbolt, then he saw it and declared it. He established it and also searched it out. And to man he said, Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. Interesting. So, Job is concluding by emphasizing that wisdom comes from God. Of course, this is true. God created wisdom. He is it. He exemplifies it. But wisdom comes from the fear of the Lord. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7, the beginning of, you know that one? Proverbs 1:7. The beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. There it is. Fear of the Lord. So wisdom comes from the fear of the Lord and shunning away from evil. The wise man wrote, if you seek wisdom as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will discern the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge. And so when he says, seek wisdom as you would silver and gold, he's saying, how hard do you look for these things? If you were to work just as hard for the wisdom of God, you would find it. You would find it. We have a treasure. And I think it's interesting that over here, where was that? Oh yeah, it was Bildad in chapter 25 when he was talking about man, how much less man than that maggot, and the son of man, that worm. So he called man a maggot and worm. How does Job view man compared to Bildad from this chapter? Hard worker. He knows how to look for things, but he doesn't know how to find wisdom. He hasn't figured it out. He's industrious. He gets things done. But if he would just take that and put it forth toward trying to know God, just how great could man be? He could be like Job. If they sought after wisdom as much as they sought after all these things in the world. I think that's the point he's trying to get started here in chapter 28. James chapter 1 verse 5 says, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. One of the things that caught my eye when I was reading through here was verse 25, when God imparted weight to the wind. When I was a kid, I would have never thought there was any weight to air or wind. Where did he get this idea? I mean, come on, that's a long time ago. I didn't even bother. I should have looked it up to see when did we discover that there was actually weight to the air around us. I mean, you can feel the wind. Have you ever stopped? When did we stop to think that there was actually weight to the wind? And here's Job before the flood saying that God imparted or put weight to the wind, to the air around us. I think that's pretty significant. He talks about quite a few things in here that I think that are interesting. One of the things, and I used to believe this, that before the flood, it never rained on the earth. What does Job say here in verse 26? God set a limit for the rain. There's a lot of people who taught, I was taught, so I believed that it never rained before the flood. Wait a minute, if Job wrote this prior to the flood, then what rain is he talking about? And so I haven't looked up to see how some of those people who I've got that idea from have to say about that, but I think that would be interesting. Set a limit for the rain and a course for the thunderbolt. So many interesting things here. And he's putting this out there. Where do we find this? We find it from God. He's showing that there is an order to things. God created these things that are in order. And when we look at these things, we should know something. We should know something about God. He wants his friends to come to that understanding, but they're too busy looking for other things. And of course, we need to come to that understanding too, and we need it desperately. We don't look at creation as a species anymore and see God. Not nearly as much as we ought to. Any other thoughts? Any other comments? Alex, hand up.
He mentions glass in here at some point.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, how hard would that be to make back then?
I mean, maybe they found it like where lightning has struck something and turned it into, I don't know. Like,
Well, I think if they're able to hewn out from the base of mountains, put up dams and stop rivers to search for gold, surely they've come to an understanding of how to make glass. You need a lot of heat, but they clearly did it.
the other thing that's interesting is when in verse 22, where it says added on in death, say with our ears, we've heard a report of, meaning about wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
added on meaning destruction or hell and death. So it's interesting that hell has, we've heard something, we've never seen it or grasped it, but we've heard hearsay that it could exist. Because nobody who has acquired true wisdom is probably going to end up there, is my thought on that. And so, yeah, we've heard hearsay of it, but
We've heard a report of it.
yeah,
We know it's out there.
yeah, but it's not here.
Nope.
Yes, I think that's kind of
Somewhere else. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's not here. It's not going to be found here. So I wonder if there was already people, building their own god system, like the Greeks did, where you have the gods over there, and you could go there and seek things out and find wisdom from him, or maybe from Ra, the sun god, or whomever it might be, and whoever you want, just pick your god. And that's the way the Greeks and the Romans dealt with that. Interesting. It is interesting. It's a great chapter. I know we don't dive in this much. I feel like it's not that hard to see, and it's an easy outline. We know how to find hidden treasures in this world, but we don't know how to find wisdom. Job surely found it. Like we made mention of this quite a bit last week, where Job did not have, that we know of, anything written down. Maybe he had a few things written down that was handed down to him from Adam and maybe a few others, but Moses had not been on the scene. They don't have the first 5 books of the Bible. They don't have any of them. And he just has whatever was handed down to him or spoken to him. But he has looked at creation, and we see that. He talks about that a lot. That should be its own study, just looking through the book of Job, where he emphasizes the creation and equates that to there being a God. And we see a lot of that from Job, where he makes that connection, and that's where he's gleaned a lot of his wisdom about God. And that's what he's pointing to here quite a bit here in chapter 28. All right, any other comments or questions?
The only other
Alex.
thing I saw was the comment about how God has put a limit to the rain. And
Yep.
That's kind of interesting to think about. Did he have to implement some kind of a limit? Otherwise, there would be rain all the time and too much rain and flooding all the time on the earth without him somehow having to restrain it.
Well, I mean, I don't know when the first rain came, but how terrifying that must be when it starts to rain. It rains, and you start to wonder, is this ever going to stop? So you don't even know what this is. And so you always got to worry. And every once in a while, it may flood like little zones, but eventually it'll stop and it goes away. And so it could be he's hinting at that. God puts a limit to it. It doesn't go on forever yet, but it will come. It will come. All right, good things. I encourage you to take a look at chapter 29. Read on into chapter 30 and 31. Job's got a lot to say in these last 4 chapters before we get to Elihu. When we do get to Elihu, like I said last time, I'm going to consolidate those all into one. And so you'll need to definitely, I'll emphasize this, definitely need to read ahead for that because we will not have time to read through all that. If there's no other comments or any other questions,